What's going on, everybody? My name is TAETRO, your electronic music mentor, and today I want to talk about one of the most important aspects to consider when purchasing a MIDI controller. Alright, first things first, if you enjoy live electronic music performances, tutorials, and content that's going to make you a more productive producer, click that subscribe button down below. I also post beat making performances on my Instagram pretty often, so you should go follow me over there. The link is in the description. Also, all the controllers I talk about in this video are going to be linked in the description as well, so you can check out more information about those. But now let's get into it. There are a lot of aspects of MIDI controllers that can make you consider one MIDI controller better for your workflow than another. They have different configurations of knobs, pads, and keys, and those are all really important when you're considering your own workflow and what's most important to you. But there's one other aspect that's not about the hardware itself that's actually a little bit more important than all of these aspects. And that's your software workflow. You'll be able to unlock the most potential out of some of these MIDI controllers depending on what DAW and what plugins you most often use. Now, the MIDI controllers I'm showing in this video are all for the most part mini keyboards, but they all exist in a bigger form, either 49 or 61 keys, but I'm just using these as examples. It's important to remember that a lot of the brands that make these keyboards also make software plugins. Two of the biggest ones being Arturia and Native Instruments. So for instance, if you use a lot of Arturia's plugins, like I like to use Pigments, you're going to do best with an Arturia MIDI controller. This is the Minilab Mark II. What's great about the synergy when you use a brand's controller and a brand's software is that they're just optimized so much better for each other than if you mix and match brands. So when I plug the Minilab Mark II, it's already mapped to some of the functions of Pigments or my other Arturia plugins. Same goes for Native Instruments. When I load up any of my Native Instruments plugins and I'm using the Native Instruments Complete Control M32 or any of my other Complete Control controllers, they automatically sync up to the plugins. So when I'm using a plugin like Kinetic Toys, which is one of my favorite Native Instruments plugins, the knobs and the workflow controls are automatically syncing up. I'm turning the knobs and it's automatically assigned to different options within the Kinetic Toys plugin. So I can move the dancer around and I can move the robot around. Not only that, but on the M32, we've got a little screen that actually shows us exactly what we're controlling. So with both these controllers being created by brands that are such big contenders in the software plugin world, it's worth considering if you're going to use Native Instruments plugins most often, or if you're going to use Arturia's plugins most often before you buy one of these controllers. Software also plays an important role with the Roly Seaboard block. This is one of my favorite controllers that I'm showing in this video. The biggest aspect of the Seaboard block that makes it different from all these other controllers is that it's MPE compatible, which means multi-polyphonic expression. You can sync into this membrane and control sounds using touch in ways you can't with these other controllers. So with the Seaboard block, it makes the most sense to get this controller if you're using software that's compatible with MPE, like Roly's Equator. Although it's also worth noting that this is the most portable option on this list, lacks some of the bells and whistles like pads and knobs, but it's the skinniest and it's Bluetooth enabled, so it makes it the most portable, the one I'm most likely to throw in my bag if I'm taking it on the go. But maybe if you're not so interested in the MPE aspect, the Roly Seaboard block wouldn't be for you. So not only do you have to consider software when you're thinking about plugins for your MIDI controller, but you also need to think about what controller is most compatible with the DAW that you're using. For me, as an Ableton user, launch products like this Launch Key Mini are the best for my workflow because they just automatically sync up with Ableton's workflow. Working in Session View, recording and launching clips is super easy because you have access to Ableton's Session View right from these pads. Not only that, but you can switch these pads over to drum mode and be playing velocity sensitive pads with the push of a button. So not only do you get all the functionality of playing the instrument, like playing the drums on the pads and playing the keys, but you also get that added workflow element. It also automatically maps to Ableton's macro knobs, so you get hands-on control with those as well. Not to mention that you can use the track arrows to navigate between Ableton's tracks. So a controller like this wouldn't necessarily be your best option if you say used Logic. Sure, you'd still be able to use the pads and the keys, but it's not the best optimized workflow for that DAW. It's really optimized for Ableton Live. Which brings me to what I think is everybody's favorite mini MIDI keyboard, the Akai MPK Mini Mark II. Now it's very similar to the Launch Key and even the Minilab because it has pads, knobs, and keys. But this one is probably the best software agnostic controller, which is why I think it's so popular among a diverse set of producers. You can pretty much use this controller with any DAW or any software, Sure, that can be said for the other controllers, but like I said in the whole point of this video, some controllers are better suited for specific types of software. The Akai MPK Mini, on the other hand, gives you some of the benefits, like in Ableton Live. For me, for instance, these knobs also sync up to Ableton's macro controls. These pads also sync up to Ableton's drum rack, but they don't sync up to Ableton Live's session view, which means I would have to custom map if I wanted to use that. At that point, I wouldn't probably do that. I would probably just pair it with a Launchpad. But in terms of being software agnostic, meaning it doesn't really adhere to a specific workflow based on a specific software, the MPK Mini is great. You can use it with a diverse set of different types of software. Sure, it's a good workhorse and you can throw it into multiple types of situations. It also means that there's probably something a little more optimized for your specific software workflow. So I hope that made sense. There are a lot of things to consider when purchasing a MIDI controller, and it's easy to get caught up in the hardware specifics like knobs and pads and keys, but it's almost more important to look at exactly what your software workflow is and which controller is gonna best suit that. Because trying to use the wrong controller and software combo is a little bit like putting a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't fit. And you're gonna be constantly at odds with your workflow and that lack of compatibility. All right, what do you think? Do you have the perfect pair of hardware MIDI controller and software combo? Let me know what it is in a comment down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and also share it with a friend who might also find it helpful. Subscribe to this channel for more live electronic music performances, tutorials, and content to make you a more productive producer. And if you're already subscribed, go down there and click the bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. I know some of you aren't seeing the videos as they pop up, so when you ring the bell, it helps to make sure that you get a notification every time I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is TAETRO, your electronic music mentor. Have a good one.